Okay, hello, welcome to our webinar series here, bottom up focus on forage. So far in the series, we've already heard from a plant breeder about plant choosing and selecting genetics. We've heard from an agronomist, and now we're going to hear from a producer panel. So today we're just going to jump on in. We're not going to have a lot of top end discussion. If you are an attendee, please put your questions either in the Q&A box or in the chat, and we'd love for you guys to actually drive this conversation and have this great lineup of speakers answer your burning questions. So at the end of this, we are going to have a few words from Barb Kinnan, and she's going to be letting us know a little bit about the Nebraska Alfalfa Marketing Association. I did post the link for that organization's website in the chat. So if you're already on and you're curious, go ahead and look at that. And if you have to jump off early, be sure and go rewatch on YouTube. We will have a recording posted where you can find out all the information you might miss. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in and introduce our panel today. First up, we have Steve Rice from Wilsonville, Nebraska. He's a 6th generation farmer and has worked with his brother to transition their farm into a big haying operation. We have Dave Hinman out of Wheatland, Wyoming, and he is a grand champion at the 2020 World Forage Super Bowl. So he's got some really great input on how to create some high quality hay. We've got Kyle Lechtenberg, who runs a diversified operation, Northview Family Farms, with his wife, Tiffany. And last but not least, we have Doug Palen, who does no-till and regenerative practices on his diversified operation. So all of these guys are really great producers, and we test samples with them very, very often, and we appreciate them being here. And from there, I'm going to go ahead and let them tell you guys a little bit about their operations, and then we'll jump into some questions. So we'll go ahead and start with Steve and move on from there.
Okay, we're in southwest Nebraska in Furnace County. We farm about 1,800 acres of alfalfa, and then later in the year we'll pick up a few hundred acres from our neighbors that don't want their 4th and 5th cutting for their stock cows, so we'll bale that for dairy hay or horse hay. We own a trucking company. We try to deliver as much of our alfalfa as we can on our own trucks, and we've been strictly an alfalfa farm since about 2000. We just started off in the livestock industry with a family feedlot, and then when my brother and I took over the farming operation, we put a pencil to it and we sold off our row crop equipment and our cows, and all we do is alfalfa and truck right now. So.
We can move on to you, David Hinman.
Thank you, Becca, for having me on. David Hinman, live in southeast Wyoming, north of Cheyenne, close to Wheatland, Wyoming. The one thing unique about our area, I guess, is that we are at 5,200 feet here. So we have a real dry climate, which allows us to put up quality hay without a lot of heavy dews on it. Usually we let the hay dry and we have to wait for a dew to get it put up. We do have a cow-calf operation to go along with our alfalfa, and we are, like Steve, we are only in the forage production right now. We may put some corn in this year with the price of corn going up, but we go to 2 niche markets. Basically, we try to sell a lot of our high-quality 4x4 bales go to the Amish there in Kelowna, Iowa, and we also do little bales, so we bundle those, and a lot of those little bales go into Colorado to feed stores, that neck of the woods. So we try to get 2 niche markets. What's left, we go for cow hay. I guess that's about as far as the World Dairy Expo. I have entered that several years. We have did pretty good there, and that is how I lined up my market with the Amish goat dairies there in Kelowna. They contacted me through that, and that has helped me market a lot of my higher quality hay. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kyle Lechtenberg.
Yeah, so alfalfa hay was kind of my way into production ag. I was number 5 of 8 kids on less than a quarter of ground in Boyd County. Went to school at Nebraska and got into animal science and just always had a passion for feed and people, really. And then I was fortunate enough to get a part-time job in the summers working for a guy by Eagle, Nebraska named Dan Hanna. He transitioned his business to me, which springboarded me into production ag and to be able to farm. And we moved that business to north central Nebraska and Boyd County, where I was from. And we grew that hay business to about 2,800 acres at one time. It got a little big and hard to manage and a little spread out, so we've since downsized. And right now we have currently 2 balers on hand, and we're between, similar to Steve, we do actually about half that many, but then we'll pick up 200 or 300 acres in the fall of neighbors and producers that maybe have a round bale that we can have a better market in. One of the exciting things was with that early transition, Dan Hanna had a ton of contacts. We too have a good Amish following, and then we just have pursued our customers hard and always, feeding people. That's what we're about.
Thank you. Go ahead, Doug Palen. Go ahead and tell us about your operation.
Hi, I'm Doug Palen. I'm north central Kansas. I'm about 50 miles from the Nebraska border and right in the middle, east to west. Actually pretty diversified grain and forage operation, I guess. Everything's dry land, but pretty diversified operation with lots of grain crops, but do have a fairly significant alfalfa portion and enterprise, I guess. And we actually, I know Dave, you said you're at high elevation, tough to get moisture at times. So we actually run a Staley steamer in our operation as well to better utilize our workflow and such. So got a little experience with that, but excited to be part of this panel and excited to hear the questions and help add where I can.
All right, thank you. So we'll start it off and we'll actually start with you, Doug. What production practices add the most value to your operation? So we'll start with you, and then if you guys want to go in reverse order that you introduced yourselves, and each of you can address this question.
Well, I guess being this is forage conversation, I guess I'll kind of direct it at that. But as I mentioned, everything is done no-till here. So we actually install or seed our forage in a no-till situation as well. So I guess that's good for my business. With regards to practices, really the Staley steamers has helped us utilize our workload and our personnel, I guess, with regards to better utilizing machinery and labor force to be able to bail when we have all those in place, I guess. So that's one thing. I guess that's not specifically production or agronomy oriented, I guess, but that is a bit of machinery part that has helped up our operation, I guess.
So one thing that it may not be unique, but we definitely take it to the extreme is first cutting is always our best, highest testing hay. And so we always try to get an early window. And one of the things that we've done to help get everything done in that early window is we've outsourced crews. So historically, we've always ran about 2 square baler crews, and we've teetered on 3 at times. And then we've hired a round bale crew to do ditch hay or end rounds or just stuff that's not as available for good quality hay. And then we've also got a chopper that's not, we outsource that as well. We sell that to dairies called haylage. Most of you are probably familiar with that. And so one of the best hay memories that I have in my time is we had about 6 days, and we kind of ran an experiment where we were going to chop hay. We basically windrowed about 600 acres in about 2 days, with the idea of at hour 24, we were going to chop it for the dairy. Hour 48, we wrapped it, wrapped hay, which you can do between 30 and 50%, made baleage, and then we had our 2 square balers going, and then we also had a round baler going. We actually had 5 crews in the field all at one time in a total panic to get all this done. And we got like 2 inches of rain at like 4 in the morning, and I think we got all but like 60 acres done. It was kind of neat because we trapped all that quality in such a tight period of time. So I don't know if that's unique, but it's extreme. That's probably best describes us. Dave, I think that's
David, and I'll go ahead and repeat the question. So what production practices add the most value to your operation?
Well, one of the everything, just like Kyle said, we do try to cut early here. That's not normally our best quality hay, but it's one of the higher quality hays versus the second when it grows faster. Then we try to get ahead of the aphids, so we don't have to spray. So we'll try to start cutting the last week of May, first week of June. And then probably the thing that has helped us the most is going from the sickle swather to the rotary swather. And my wife runs a rotary swather, and we can cut down what used to run at 2 or 3 miles an hour. We're cutting hay now, at 10 to 12 miles an hour. So we're laying it down better, faster, it dries better. So when we go to rake it and put it up, it helps cure out, and the window is a little tight, a lot tighter that way, I guess, because we have more hay we can put up at that same time period.
As far as production practices that we do, we try to plant the latest genetics. We're pretty much all Harb Extra now. We feel that gives us a higher chance of putting up quality feed, gives us a larger window to do that. Also, in our fertilizer program, we grid sample all of our land. We have varying soil types in the same field that are extreme. We go from sand on one portion of the field to, maybe a heavy gumbo and everything in between. So we're grid sampling, sending those through our agronomists to ward labs, and they're giving us what we need to put on each acre in a grid sampling with variable rate. And then we also add to our equipment a lot of add-on equipment. We'll pull a brand new swather in, and we'll take a crimper out, and we put an aftermarket full contact crimper in. That helps us in the production or in the drying of the alfalfa. We feel that it's a softer, more palatable feed for the customers. And we actually feel that we get a heavier bale. So in our trucking company, we obviously want to haul as much weight as we possibly can every time. And we feel like we can do that. We get more pounds per bale, and that's just an advantage that we get. And those are a few of the things that we do.
Okay. So I just want to reiterate, for those of you who are attending, we would love to see your questions coming in the chat in the Q&A. So our next question here, I think we'll start with you, Kyle, because you did mention about, getting that rain, at 4 a.m. So the next question is, what are some of the challenges you've faced in regards to forage production? And how did you handle those? And, do you have tips for, producers as they're encountering the same types of challenges?
Yeah, so it does seem like probably the last 10 years of the environment has been a wetter environment than I remember growing up. And I can't speak to the specifics of that, but all I know as a hay producer, it's been shorter windows and a little bit harder than it was in the 2000s and even back in the 90s. So what we've done is probably got the wrapper
Okay, so it seems like he's having an internet connection. So, oh,
Whoop,
Are-
is it back? Can you hear me okay?
yes, if you'd like to repeat what you just said, you did cut.
Okay. So I always tell my crew that, you know, back in the day, that all the neighbors and families would get together and they'd make haystacks as a crew and as a team. So that was kind of our approach to get the timing down, was just to bring a full team at it and try to hit those windows hard and fast, and then try to get it protected, because, you know, that storage is probably the most important piece outside of getting it out of the rain, is just having a place to store, whether it's in a barn or in wrap or under a pile as haylage.
Okay. Steve Rice, we'll go to you next as to some of the challenges that you faced in forage production and how you've handled.
Yeah, Mother Nature is obviously the biggest challenge. And then, as Kyle said, you only have a very short window to put up quality feed, and you have to have a dedicated crew. Our guys will get it done, and that's what it comes down to. It might be a challenge because you might be sitting around till 2 o'clock in the morning before you start, but you have to have the ability to get it put up right and get it to the storage. And you know, mechanics, you know, mechanical issues obviously, but then in farming and anything else, you're going to have that. So it's always good to have a backup piece of machinery that, if you can, and so that you can keep things rolling. But Mother Nature's the biggest challenge as far as some of the forage production goes.
We'll move on to you, David.
Like Steve said, Mother Nature, weather, probably our biggest concern in our area is the wind. And we do get our share of wind in this country, so we will end up sometimes raking hay twice. Some guys have raked it 3 times to get it put up, but the windows are tight. And my wife and I, she runs the little baler and I run the big baler, so my daughter's involved in it also. So there's just the 3 of us. So our team works generally 24 hours a day when we put up hay if we need to. So it's just get it done when the timing's right is the best. It's always a challenge.
Thank you. Okay, and then we'll move down to you, Doug. So we have actually a question for you. We have a attendee that would like to hear more about the steamer that you were referring to, and I also was curious about that. So if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit more about that, and then if you have any other unique challenges that you'd like to add.
Okay, sure. Yeah. So with regards to challenges, yeah, we're in an environment actually where we struggle to get hay dry, yet we've got a device that wets hay. So, but they actually go together. So with regards to getting hay dry, we also, as Steve does, run aftermarket grippers. Or I think he'd mentioned that to get it laid as wide as we can. I saw in the chat someone asked about tedders. I do have a bit of experience with using tedders in some applications, but specifically back to the steamer, yeah, for those who aren't familiar with it, just in general, it's a device that we run between the tractor, the power unit, and the baler that is creates steam to put back on the windrows to be able to bale in much more drier humidities, of course. And so what that allows me to do, it's not that we're at 5,000 feet and never get humidity. Typically we will, but it's very unpredictable about when it comes. So as a diverse operation with a workforce here to do grain and stuff too, it really affords me an opportunity to take that workforce and move right out of the grain into the hay when I want to or when I need to. So if we've raked hay in the morning and I know by 3 or 4 in the afternoon it's dry, we can take the workforce and move into it and get going when I want to or when we need to get moving. And we do a fair bit of acres for one machine that we have, and we do get some support for some custom stuff as well. And so that's really how the steamer works in, and be happy to visit after this with anyone individually that wants to contact me about that. But
Great. Do you want to go ahead and put your contact information in the chat? Or you can chat with him personally. It's Chad Hansen is the panelist that was wanting to know about the steamer. And then I'll go ahead and open up any tedding question. The tedding question is if any of you guys really use tedders. And so if any of you guys have something to say about that.
I don't have anything specifically on tedders other than similarly, raking is the most important thing in any hay crew I've been in. And a couple of my mentors that have taught me how to hay, you'll always find the leader in the rake, because the timing of the rake, it leads everything to follow. And if you screw that up, you've screwed maybe more than a day up. So rake management in general is probably the biggest focus that we deal with. That's my main focus, actually, when I'm getting ready to harvest. I have no experience on tedders.
Well,
Go ahead,
tedder
Steve.
rakes, if we have hay that we were unfortunate enough to have V-raked together and doubled, and we did not get it baled, we'll get a rain on it. A lot of times, that gets matted down, and we use a couple of rakes, tedder rakes, to get it picked back up, lifted, and it really separates the hay. Instead of trying to bump it with another wheel rake or something like that, we use tedder rakes. It lifts and separates. After you get hay rained on, you're going to have leaf loss. But if you manage it right, like Kyle said, get out there at the right time, you have minimal leaf loss, and we feel like the tedder rake lifts and separates it, and you have a better chance of getting that dry where it can go back into a square bale. We try to square bale everything that we possibly can. For our operation, we really try to avoid pulling a round baler out in our scenario with our markets, and the way we're set up, everything works better with a square bale. So we're trying to get it as dry as possible after it's been rained on, and the tedder rakes help us accomplish that.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to the next question. We'll start with you, David Hinman. So let's go ahead with, so you kind of already touched on some of the places where you've gone to market your hay and where you've been successful finding that. So what are some tips you would have for other producers on how to successfully market their hay?
Well, the one thing that helps market the hay is getting a test on it. And so many people, that's the first thing they want to know is what the test is on the hay. So that's the first thing we do is test all the hay that comes out of the field, separate it, flag it, mark it. All the production that we have here that we do, all goes inside buildings. So we store everything inside. If it is cow hay, it doesn't go in the building, but anything that looks like it is dairy quality or horse quality, that direction, all goes inside the barn for storage. But the main thing is getting your hay, I guess, tested. So when you go to talk to somebody, when I first started in the hay production, which was some 35, 40 years ago, we were living in Colorado at the time, and we were going to Pueblo and south of Pueblo to some of the dairies there. We'd load up some hay in the back of the pickup. We'd pull into the dairyman's yard. You'd have the test. You take a look at it. Is it fine and soft? Sometimes they would buy a load. They want to see what kind of milk they got out of it. But the main thing is take the hay with you, have a test, and that sells hay.
Okay, I'll go ahead and direct that same question to you, Steve. And then once you've got that answered, we do have a question for you in the chat regarding your grid sampling and your fertility program. They just want to know more in depth and detail on how you're running that, how many acres per grid. Do you use variable rate fertility? What micronutrients are you focusing on when you're doing those samples?
Okay. As far as our grid sampling goes, I'm probably not the one that needs to be answering that. My brother is not here. But our agronomist takes care of that, and he goes out and pulls multiple samples per acre. And then we map the program into their applicator. We're putting on 4 different products. We're going with boron, we're going with phos, going with a little zinc, and whatever else each particular field. That last product may vary from field to field. And we do that on every acre. And if someone wants to ask me more questions about that, my brother's not here right now, but we would be more than happy to visit with someone about that in more depth. He kind of takes care of the fertilizer program, so I'm not maybe the expert in that. And as far as like, what was the other question? I'm sorry.
Marketing. So what are some of the tools that you use when marketing your hay? How are you finding your customers? Those.
Sure. Marketing our hay, we started this in '97 with 0 customers. We had been putting up round bales going into our family feedlot for years, and we had a neighbor said, "You guys need to be doing dairy hay." He had a square baler. He's a former president of the Nebraska Alfalfa Association, Mr. Bill Lewis, was a great neighbor. He said, "I'll bale some for you and you can get started trying to do this." And he got us into the Nebraska Alfalfa Marketing Association. We worked with that group extensively. We've gone all over the country marketing Nebraska forages and our own forages through that organization. It is how I built and my brother built this business. And also, just word of mouth. Once you get a customer, if you're delivering a good product, word of mouth is going to travel. Somebody comes to somebody else's farm and they're looking at seed stock, or they're looking at, whatever piece of machinery, and they look over in the barn and see some nice hay. They say, "Where did you get that?" And we've gotten a lot of referrals from that. Testing, you have to know what you have. Absolutely need to have your forages analyzed. Just because you have first cutting that's rained on and non-rained on hay, that you need more information than that. You need to know the relative feed quality. You need to know the protein levels. You need to know the moisture levels, so that if a dairyman calls you who feeds with a TMR, you might need to know what the moisture level of that particular sample is, so that he's happy with the product when he's done. If it's an Amishman who's going to hand feed it, or a horse customer, you might be looking at for something with a little bit more moisture for leaf retention. So the forage analysis is very, very important, and get involved with a group. You need to network. It's great to be involved with those types of organizations, and you learn so much from them. So that's how we market our hay.
Excuse me, sorry about that. I have a follow-up question from the chat, and it sounds like to me it's probably going to be one for your brother. How is your current zinc availability? Industry is showing severe shortages.
Not my department, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. And being as we are on a Ward Laboratories webinar, we're going to go ahead and tell that person test your own soil, because it's variable and you need to know what's going on your operation. So with that, we'll go ahead. We haven't heard from Doug or Kyle yet as to their marketing schemes. And so if you guys want to go ahead and put in how you guys are successful with marketing forage. We'll start with you, Doug, and then we'll go.
So as was mentioned, of course, we sample everything, keep a fairly detailed inventory list. Yeah, everything is every load out of the field is sampled separately, and we track that clear through inventory. Nearly everything is in sheds, if at all possible. and again, so we track that very closely. Marketing, I do kind of an arrangement of things. I've got some history with some brokers that assist, that we've got great relationships, and they've been good to me. We do some direct. Yeah, most of my hay leaves this area and goes north and east here to regions that are challenged a bit more with putting up dry hay. So most of the hay that leaves here is going 500 to 1,000 miles east and northeast primarily. So that's what we do. So I'm having big tips, but other than just, yeah, being very transparent, knowing what you have, having good records, I think that goes along. And you can say, hey, yeah, this is where it came from and this is what it tests. And just being honest, you put hay on a truck and it's gone. Just got to be honest with folks, and that goes a long way. So that's what I know.
So we've also kind of done all the above there. We test everything right out of the field for sure. And then if there's a request, we'll either do a second lab or a later test if the customer wants. We also do that for the soil. Our inventory program will track all the nutrients as that come in the hay. And so we're trying to link that back to our soil test as well. And then the other thing we do, and I will just say the Nebraska alfalfa has been a good platform for us in the past as well, especially during my earlier years. And then one other thing that's a little bit unique is this is just something that I've always been passionate about. It's a generational family farm. If you can imagine like a 72-year-old, a 56-year-old, a 36-year-old, and an 18-year-old, that's about 4 generations of people that are ability to do work and do business in the hay industry. And so we've always tried to market to that same group. So we'll actually send newsletters out to the middle to older group. We'll send emails to the middle group. We'll do text blasts to the young, to the middle group. And then we'll do some social media stuff to the young and the middle group and growing the older group. So I don't want to offend anyone. I'm not ageist or anything, but that's been a unique platform, and I think it's really performed well for our business.
That's great. And I love that you're targeting, different age groups with different methods of reaching them. That's very, very cool. So we have another question in the chat, and it's about how you guys are all storing your hay. And I know each of you kind of hit on that. You think that's a very important step in this process. So we'll go ahead and let you keep going, Kyle, if you want to tell us about your storage, and then we can, move.
Yeah. So first of all, when you start out with nothing, you use every resource you possibly have. So we had like 5 barns that were either grandpa, uncle, dad, machine shed. If it held 1 load of hay, we would use it to store hay. And we still use some old machine barns to store hay. And we had an old abandoned dairy that we filled with hay. We actually had a hay fire and lost about $80,000 worth of hay in a dairy barn a few years ago. That was one of the low parts of storage, I guess. And I don't know what the panel all thinks, but that was the only time we ever tried inoculant and pursued it, and I have not tried it since then. I think there's good ways to use it, but we must not have used it as effectively as we should have. The other storage we have is hoop barns. We've got 2 hoop barns that work really well. The hay does come a little bleached on the tops because the sun will get through the white hoop barn. And then we've also wrapped hay for years. The problem with wrapping hay is that it's less marketable. We've wrapped completely dry hay, kind of medium hay, and wet hay. And even you can have a pretty good product and you can multi-test it, but sometimes the appearance just isn't going to pass the smell test, so to speak. And so we've kind of went away from wrapping just because the marketability wasn't as good. Now, if we're going to feed it for our own cattle, I love wrapped hay, and I think it's a great way to store hay. And then, of course, we've tarped hay for years, and that's not as much fun, but we still do that pretty regularly.
Steve, do you want to jump in and talk about your storage?
Sure. We have big hay barns, open-sided hay barns. We have the buildings are anywhere from 150 feet long to 210 feet long, 60 feet wide. We have 30-foot bays in those buildings so that we can get the bales in the aisles with room so that they can breathe. We have a lot of storage, and we're always looking for more, because that's one of the best ways to ensure that you can get the maximum amount of money for your crop. You've worked so hard to build it or to raise it and harvest it. It is absolutely a shame when you have it get ruined because of storage. So we tarp everything. Our grinding hay gets tarped. And the reason that we do that, we've had some times in the past where a customer will say, well, I'm going to buy your grinding hay, and we make an arrangement. It's going to be taking it in August through November. And, things happen, and that gets pushed back, and that gets pushed back. And all of a sudden you're looking at, you're trying to deliver that same hay in April and May of the following year, and your feed quality is nowhere near what it was when you put it in that stack, unless it's covered. So everything gets covered. Our open-sided sheds, we hold a lot of hay in them. I love them. The hay has the opportunity to breathe. Yes, as Kyle mentioned, you start to get some bleaching on the outside of the bales, but as far as the rest of the bales, as soon as you pull that face bale off of it, you've got the color that was in there when you put it in the barn. So our customers know that's the situation, and we try to cover everything that we possibly can.
Excellent. Yep. And stressing that retaining that quality by proper storage is definitely something we can tell in the lab when we have customers that test things twice. So the next question I'm going to direct at you first, David Hinman, and then we'll go down to you, Doug. And that question is, have you seen an increase in demand for the non-GMO hay? This person says they have a customer that they are trying to buy. They are not the producers, but they're buying hay for steers because whoever's buying the steers wants them to be fed non-GMO.
That's my biggest hay market is non-GMO. We do have some of the Harv Extra planted. I wanted to test it in my own situation to see if I could get the quality or if the quality was better. The non-GMO hay is the highest seller around here, especially going into the Amish. Most of them require it to be non-GMO. There are a few that will let you sell GMO hay to them. As far as the little bales that we sell are all non-GMO, grass and alfalfa both. So I can see that market, but I think it's both ways. A lot of the dairies, doesn't matter, but there are a lot more people looking at non-GMO and trying to go that direction.
Yeah, this is Doug. Yeah, I would say that, I've probably seen a small increase in non-GMO hay. I grow both, kind of indifferent which one I grow. There's opportunities at times when there's maybe an ask for non-GMO hay, and sometimes maybe that's the difference between moving in it or not. If you happen to have a few loads or whatever of that. So yeah, I do both, and have probably seen a small increase in demand, I guess, for that in unique situations. So.
Great, thank you. So then we have another question, and I'm going to leave this open. Whoever would like to start. Do any of the panelists pre-process, cut, or chop their dry hay prior to baling? And if so, do you like it? Is there a price of equipment that you're partial to? Oh, piece, I think is what they mean. And and how do you accomplish this? Do any of you guys do that?
I have always thought the concept was really neat, and I always wanted to try one out. And I've bought some chopped hay, and it's just easier to grind and quicker to grind. So I think there are some benefits, but I don't know as far as what the equipment cost versus benefit would be. But I love the concept and the thought of it.
Mm-hmm.
None of our balers run a chopper on them. We've never tried it. And our customers that ask for the hay to be dry enough, we're baling it that the TMR will chew it up without it having to be processed.
That's the same way here in Wyoming. We have not tried it. I've had some neighbors that have used one. Most of that hay went to feedlots that ground it or also with TMRs.
Yeah, this is Doug. I don't have any experience with that either. Typically, I think you see that in more humid environments in the east and northeast, I guess, where they're bigger ranker hay and they need pre-cut. But most of the hay, in my experience, coming out of these drier regions, typically that's not done. But
yeah, so I know that there was recently an article in High Plains Journal, and unfortunately I can't recall the title on it, but I can maybe get with I can get with this attendee and send them that information about that. But I know there were some concerns with the ability to sample those kinds of bales because the probe kind of pushes those higher fiber portions away. So they did see lower fiber concentrations, but they think that's an artifact of the sampling. So like Kyle said, and the article said, there's definitely some processing timing advantages, but as far as being able to know for sure what you've got, that might be something that needs to be rethought a little bit when we come to from the sampling perspective. So then we have
I was just going to comment along with that line, chopping the haylage, which is essentially kind of what we're talking about, has proved to be some of our best conversions to milk. Like it's made the best milk in mid to bigger sized dairies. We don't send any of that to small dairies, but and I think it's the sooner you can process it and have it stored from the time you cut it, the better your test is going to be. So there's a couple variables in there, but one is I think chopping and then just tightening your timing window.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so the question was about dry hay, but you're absolutely right with the haylage. The better you can get that chopped up, then that just is more surface area for those microbes, which means there's going to be more of those good volatile fatty acids. So of course, that's absolutely awesome that you're seeing better milk production from that. Really supporting the literature that's out there on that is awesome. Okay, so the next question that we have, does anyone know what Tani forage hay is? And this one is even throwing me. I haven't even seen a sample labeled that way. Do any of you guys know?
I'm not familiar with the term.
No,
Neither am I.
Neither
No.
am I.
Okay, so that's a resounding no. Oh, did you have something?
Yeah,
Doug?
I don't know, maybe it's not appropriate for a panelist to ask a question of the other panelists, but I think a good topic of conversation might be a method of sampling hay, maybe either frequency or timing or number of cores per sample lot. I'd be curious what the panelists do historically. I think that's one thing that even all the producers kind of wonder when and where, how many cores to pull. I guess since my mouth's open, I'll say what we do. We pull because we're bringing it in the shed, so it's just convenient to pull it at the time of storage. We'll pull 10 cores of a foot and a half out of randomly out of a bale, a truck of 36 bales, and that's what we do. And we use a drill with a power tube with the bit on the end or whatever and pull. That's what we do, and everything goes in. But kind of a stickler about how that happens and angles and all the goodies. But I'd be curious what the other folks on the panelists do. I think that's an important part of the discussion.
So we do.
Whoop, go ahead, Kyle.
So we go to the end of the bale and we do 5 cores per one sample, and we kind of roughly figure 20 to 40 acres, depending on the field and the variant. But we'll try to do 5, and we have a Ward Labs sampler, and then our initial sample, everything goes to Ward, and then if a customer.
Kyle,
You can go ahead, Steve.
Okay. We do it very similarly. As the hay comes in to the hay barns, we're pulling samples. We use a Colorado hay probe. I sharpen that probe multiple times per cutting. I think it's very important. And a lot of times when I have found a problem with a test result, I have gone to look at the person who pulled the other sample, and their probe is as dull as a butter knife. I can't believe they can get it into a bale. I make sure my probe is sharp all the time, and we fill a big bag. I mean, if a load comes in a lot, we're trying to give the lab as much product to grind as possible. So we can have anywhere from 15 to 20 cores in a sample. The bag is full. And we send that off as soon as we can. We also make sure that sample doesn't sit in the dash of the pickup for 2 days or in the office for a week. It gets covered and it gets mailed. And that's the way we do it.
We do it similar. Normally I sample in the field. I have an accumulator on my baler, so I drop bales. I'll pull out, we'll sample 10, 12 bales to the end with a rotary. I do have a Colorado hay probe also, with sometimes use both of those. I will sample on my bigger pivots. I have one pivot that's 240 acres. We'll do half at a time, and I'll sample the north and south end of that, and maybe also the east side where I drop bales, so I can get a preference on the quality of hay even as it goes around the pivots, but sometimes it varies. Like you, Steve, I do grid sample all mine also. I think that helps in production and helps in quality and knowing what that hay is taking off and what we're putting back into it also.
One last comment on that. We also airtight it when we take the sample, and then if at all there's going to be an overnight, we'll throw it in the freezer for an overnight if we can't catch the mail same day. I'm not sure how much that variance is, but that's just something we've always done.
Well, it's certainly something that can't hurt. And that kind of brings us to a good place here. Our next webinar, I'm just going to present a short bit about proper hay sampling and then using NIR, which most of you guys are using the NIR consortium equations for your report, and then interpreting that from a forage producer perspective. So with that, thank you guys so much for a great discussion. We're going to go ahead and give the floor to Barb so she can tell us a little bit about the Nebraska Alfalfa Marketers Association.
Thanks, Rebecca. Good job, guys. You guys hit a lot of great points and great topics. The Nebraska Alfalfa Marketing Association was established in 1986 by a group of commercial forage producers that were looking for a market for their forages. University of Nebraska, Dr. Bruce Anderson was also active in forming the organization, and it has been highly successful. There are multiple hay associations throughout the United States. However, ours is a little bit more unique than some of the others. Some of the things that our association has offered is the marketing opportunities. We kind of have a national marketing campaign. We travel to trade shows. Here recently in the last probably 5 years, more so definitely in the last 2 years, trade shows are kind of going by the wayside, but it is an excellent way to reach potential new customers, to reconnect with existing customers. And I think some things that I know I heard Steve and Kyle both touch on, and I perhaps Dave as well, is that marketing is about establishing relationships and maintaining those relationships. And that's one of the highest, one of the most important things that you can do as producers. And so the World Dairy Expo is something that we have gone to for close to 30 years, if not right at 30 years. And that's an opportunity as well, as so they can build new markets. They can, our producers can reconnect with some of the customers that they have established through there. So as an association, the association purchases the booth space at these trade shows and allows the members an opportunity to participate in the trade shows. They're basically there to promote the association as a whole. Perhaps they have their own inventories to promote, and that's, by all means, that's definitely acceptable. Sometimes they go along, don't have any inventories of their own, and they, that's where they step in, and they may know a neighbor that is a member and can help promote their forages as well. We have done national advertising campaigns, multiple different print medias, online, social medias, several different platforms that we have done from time to time in promoting the association. And when we do promotion, we are directing potential customers to our website and to an 800 number. Whereas if a dairy producer, livestock producer, whether it be horses, dairy, goats, whatever, if they have a need for a product, then they go to the website, or they call the 800 number, and then they're referred to a member that may have a product that they're looking for. So on the website, there is an inventory listing system that the producers can go online, post what they have as far as bale size, tests, what it is, whether it's alfalfa, whether it's an alfalfa grass mix, whatever it is, that's posted on there. We don't post any pricings. That way we kind of keep away from price, people just shopping based on price. And again, which was stated earlier, testing is highly important. That way you know what you're marketing, and then you have, the person can see the numbers. There's more to marketing hay than looking at the numbers. We all know that there's a physical description as well that is highly important to knowing what your product is. But it's a place to start the conversation. Our association has educational forums that we share with members that come from outside sources. It comes from members, it comes from universities. We do a trade show, except for the last year or so. It's been a little unique thanks to COVID, but we do have a trade show that we have speakers that deal with everything from marketing, production, various topics that we can share with our membership. Our association puts out, does a weekly radio program that's on about 5 different radio stations in Nebraska and touches into Kansas, that we do just a brief little market update every week that we can kind of keep producers informed on what's going on within the forage industry, what's going on within the association, and kind of what pricing is. We do a newsletter, print and electronic. It's available both print and electronically. And we have associate members, which also participate and get those newsletters. Pricing information that we share and that kind of thing, you don't have to be a member. You know, if somebody's listening to the radio program, we talk about pricing. You know, we accept calls from anybody that calls in to say, hey, you know, what's the current market that you're seeing? Members within the association will call and report sales that they're making. So they're not hypothetical numbers, they're actual numbers on sales that our members have made. We share industry resource information, trekking information, as far as, you know, different truck brokerages help. We don't do any lining up of any transportation, but we've got information that we can share. We will share information on that our industry members, as far as equipment dealers, seed suppliers, tarp suppliers, twine suppliers, whatever. We have that information available that we will share with members. And then probably what has been, I'm most proud of in the last 5 to 10 years is our involvement at a national level. We are a charter board member of the National Alfalfa Forage Alliance, which is, it's made up of all industry supporters, whether it's equipment dealers, seed genetic suppliers, seed growers, forage growers, and we have gone to bat in Washington, D.C. and have been able to garner a lot of exposure for the forage industry. We're the 3rd most valuable field crop in the nation, and yet we don't have an equal playing field as far as research dollars. And so that's what we have been very actively involved in. And so as a member of the Nebraska Alfalfa Marketing Association, those dues also help support the dues for us to be a member of the National Association. And we have been highly successful in raising we had been at 3 million, when we started this endeavor, we were at $3 million at a national level as far as forage research, and we are up between 16 and 18 million dollars now. So in comparison to what corn and soybeans have, we still have a long ways to go, but we are gaining a little bit of ground, and it has definitely helped our industry. Some of those forage research dollars go back to the land-grant universities. And we have, as a national association, we've also established our own checkoff dollar system through the seed suppliers, and $1 a bag goes into a research fund that land-grant universities can apply for any projects that they need funding on, and then they are granted those dollars, and research projects have taken place. In fact, the University of Nebraska has been a co-sponsor of some of those. So in a nutshell, that's basically what the association does. Again, it's a networking association, and it's been very successful over the last years.
Hey, Barb, I'd like to say that over the years, the Alfalfa Association, being involved in that, Nebraska Alfalfa not only has gone to World Dairy Expo, but we've gone into like 10 different states while I've been a part of it, and Pennsylvania, New York, Tennessee, or let's see, Kentucky, Texas, South Dakota, Colorado. we attend other trade shows, and through the years, I mean, that's what we've done. And you could go with the association and promote the association and also help build your business. And, you know, being able to be involved in that, list inventories on the website has really helped our organization and built Nebraska alfalfa. And it's really helped our farm personally, and been very beneficial to be a part of that and to be active in it.
Steve is right, you know, and now we're switching over to participating in virtual farm shows and stuff. So there's some of that we're starting to become involved in. And Steve's right, you know, another thing, the way of marketing is kind of following the weather market, where, you know, if we see a dry area, then we will do drop-in advertising campaigns and social media marketing in those areas. And sometimes there'll be state websites that for emergency haying and stuff when we involve ourselves on some of those. So pretty much as general, the forage market, as most of you all know, is pretty much basically from the Rockies, east, north, and south, just because it's a little harder to get west of the Rockies. But so we have done trade shows and media advertising in multiple states across the country. We have been in California, and there have been a couple of producers that have been successful in sending hay that direction, but those are more unique markets that way.
So something I just want to make sure on, you're the Nebraska Alfalfa Marketing Association, but I know you guys do allow members in other states, correct?
We are the Nebraska Alfalfa Marketing Association, and a few years ago, we adopted doing business as independent forage growers. And the purpose of that was that we did drop the borders. We do have members Dave's been a member off and on over the last several years. So we have members in Wyoming, South Dakota, Kansas. We have had members from Minnesota as well. So it's mostly Nebraska and surrounding states, but we do have other members from time to time.
Anyone who is, you know, on the fence about joining, another perk of being a member, of course, you have to let us know, hey, I joined, but you do get 15% off your testing here at Ward Laboratories. So if you're on the fence, that's another perk that you get. So with that, we're getting just past 2:00. So we're going to go ahead and thank you all so much for sharing. You all have such great operations, unique stories. I feel like a lot to learn. So we really appreciate all of you being here with us today. And thank you, Barb, again, for sharing about your marketing association.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Thanks, Rebecca.